Okay, here we go. Episode number 3 of Two On One podcast here on HometownHockey.ca. My name is Chris Savard. Top left is my buddy Tim Cornett, and I'll turn it over to Tim to introduce our guest for this week.
All right. Well, tonight we have a former Spitfire who went on to a very successful NHL career, and he's a veteran of 10 NHL seasons, mostly with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He also played for Tampa Bay, Phoenix, Vancouver, Philadelphia, and Nashville. An analyst with Sportsnet, and he's recently been named as an assistant coach for the University of Windsor Lancers hockey program. And it's my pleasure to introduce Todd Warriner. Todd, thanks for joining us and welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you, guys. Good to be here. Thank you.
Stuff. So you're born in Blenheim, and you were playing for the Chatham Micmacs when you were selected by the Spitfires in the first round of the 1990 draft. And I believe 3rd overall. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
And your coach was Brad Motor City Smitty Smith, and he had scouted you. And how did you get the news that you were drafted by the Spits?
Well, Brad, when I was playing for the Micmacs, we went to the Ontario semifinals. We actually lost to Stratford in Game 7 in double overtime in order to go on to the Ontario finals. So Brad actually came to a bunch of my games because we were playing after the Spitfires had been eliminated. So we were, playing into early May, I guess it would be late April then. And so Brad was at some games and met my parents. I didn't really formally sort of meet him until he came to my house in late May. And with Terry McConnell was the GM then. I don't know if you remember Terry, but so they came and we had like a formal meeting at the house, and that would have been a few weeks before the draft. So I knew of Brad. We had sort of mutual friends. I mean, he was friends with Jeff Jackson. He was friends with Wendell Clark, my agent. We both had the same agent, Donnie Meehan. So I knew of Brad, and I'd watched Brad play and knew the Spitfires. Being a local guy. So I knew the situation there. I didn't know if I was going to be moving up that high, but I sort of, the playoff run we went on in Chatham and, being on a team with Brian Wiseman, who brought so much exposure to the junior B loop that year because he beat the scoring record and our team and just the way we played. Our coach was Wayne Jacqueline. He was actually somebody that Brad called regularly to see how I was doing. And I was off the radar, boys. Like I was literally playing Bantam hockey the year before and I grew and Coach Jacqueline, I was surprised to be on that team because I knew they were a good team and I knew that Brian was coming back and I knew they had a chance to win a championship. So I was just happy to be on the team, and as good as we are, the team did, and as long as we played, just helped my stock. And by the end of the year, I'd gone from sort of not even, in the conversation to a first-round pick. So it was a pretty cool year.
Yeah, for sure. It's good the way it turned out. Good stuff. Now.
Yeah, I mean, like it really did. Like, I mean, I look at Brad, like, Brad. He just really took to me. Like I was young, I was an underage. Back then they had you could get drafted as a 73 berth. You could also get picked as a 74 berth, but you had to go in the first 3 rounds. There was only, in a given year, there would be, 10 to 15 maybe players that were underage that would even get picked. So to be able to walk into the league and get a chance to play was often rare. Like you didn't often get a chance to your second year. So Brad, we were a thin team and there was some movement and it was a rebuild for sure. But, getting Corey Stillman in the second round is one of the all-time steals. I played with him. Yeah. For me to get to play with Corey right away and both of us getting to play so much, I mean, that's not normal. And then, the next year Bill Bowler came in, so 2 of the best centerman passers that Spitfires have ever had. And I was lucky enough to be a winger. So, it was a great situation. And I don't know if you guys know this. So Bob Jr., of course, who's coaching in San Jose now, he would move up north and he was playing in the Sioux at the time, and I would move into his bedroom. So that was my billet family at the time. So they knew the routine, and I was real lucky from day one. Coaching in my court, great family to live with. It was great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, your first road trip was to North Bay.
Oh.
And your teammates warned you about one of their players, Casey Jones.
Give me. Oh, I'm losing you, Timmy. Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Let me get sorted out here.
Yeah, no problem.
It's good, right? We got you. Sorry, boys. So,
Awesome, no problem.
what's your question, Timmy?
Okay,
My fault.
so your first road trip was to North Bay, and your teammates warned you about one of the guys on that team named Casey Jones.
You've heard the story, yeah. Yeah, that's a good story. Yeah, Casey Jones. So, I was a rookie, of course. We played Thursday night. It was our first game, and then we did the Northern. So we were going all the way to the Sioux on the Sunday. I think it was like Friday, North Bay. Yeah, Friday, North Bay, Saturday, Sudbury, Sunday, the Sioux. How we used to do 4 and 4. So yeah, guys that come up to me. There's a guy on North Bay. His name's Casey Jones. He's a killer. Like he's a maniac. And this is before the days of internet, right? You didn't have, and the yearbook or whatever would come out in November, December. So I had no idea. I've seen North playing years. Who is this guy? So every hour on the hour, these guys would come up, and of course I'm sitting at the front of the bus, and they'd come up and say, "Hey, I don't know if the guys told you, but in case you know, he's got the biggest head in the league. He's a killer, So I'd be like, oh, okay. So 20 minutes, trying to sleep, whatever. A new guy'd come up and be like, hey, I don't know if the guys told you, but keep your head up out there tonight, And it's like, hey, good luck, we got your back, kind of thing. And so they make me go out first. So I was white knuckling all the way to North Bay. And I'm thinking, well, who is this guy? So they make me go out. I'm just like, I'm gonna face the music, I'm gonna own up to this guy. So as I'm skating around, I'm thinking, who is this guy? Like they're all on the ice and skating around, and I'm thinking, who is this guy? He's coming for me. And I got my stick up, right? And all the guys are on the bench, and they're pointing into the corner at the mascot, who of course was like the conductor, and he had like the big, blow up head, right? Casey Jones. So anyway, I was relieved to know there was nobody coming to kill me that night, Timmy. So anyway, yeah, that's a true story, and the guys loved it too. Like there was about 8 of them that every hour on the hour would come up and tap on my shoulder just to remind me and say, hey, I don't know if any of the other guys told you, but, it was the same story again. Right?
Yeah. So that would have been a hell of a long bus trip.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I was, I'm 15, 16 years old. And it's like you couldn't go on the internet and check who this dude was, right? So it's a big joke. And anyway, so I was glad to see he was outside of the rink that night.
For sure, he wasn't going to do much damage. All right, so you talked about Corey Stillman already, and was a pretty good player.
Man, he was good right away. Like we all knew it. He just. Look at what he's done in his career after the fact. Like, he had 90 points, I think, as a rookie or rookie of the year that year in junior. Just such a smart player, such a good passer. He was just, and he was way ahead of his time. He was real professional, good student. Like he did everything, for a team that and right away. Like he was, a captain right away. He was goal. He, like there was no chance that he wasn't going to play a lot and took responsibility for everything. He was just, a guy. You couldn't ask for a guy to come with, and look what he did. He never a great skater, but in our rink, it was small. He was good with a stick, and he was such a good passer, saw the ice that for I think it was also great too that Brad, that he put us together. We played probably 50 games on the same line, and sort of was like two young guys right away, pushed each other, and I think he made me better immediately. He just was so, he was just a pro. Like he was consistent, day in and day out, and pushed me to be ready and better and contribute, and so yeah, it was ideal. I was saying he was such a smart player. Used the ice. Windsor Arena was so small. A player like that, you had to use your space well, know what was around you all the time, and he was so good at it. And all I did was skate and get to the net, be ready to shoot. He was that good a player. So yeah, right away made an impact, and it was obviously for a guy like me to get to play with him was huge for me.
For sure.
Todd, you played over about 130 games with the Spits. Who else would be in your memory as some of your favorites teammates during that time frame?
Oh wow, so many. My first year, guys like Tyler Ertl and Jason York, Jeff Wilson. I don't want to leave too many guys out. There's a lot of good veteran guys. Jason Cerrone came to us later on. You'll remember that name. Just older guys that really embraced it. By the time some of the guys, we made some trades, we got better. We added some players, and they just let us be us. A lot of that time, rookies didn't get a lot of time or respect, and I look back at that time, like they were looking to us to get stuff done and make a difference, and they embraced us. That was really it. And Brad's a big part of that too. Brad and the leadership of the team, and Dave Perpich, guys, they didn't allow us to be rookies. They're like, these guys are a part of the solution. Let's embrace them. We're playing power play and doing things with guys that are 20 years old, and so they were just really good to us. I still talk to some of those guys now. Jason Stoss, Tyler Ertl, I see in the rinks around. We have kids that's the same age, play against each other, and of course Jason York I see now at Sportsnet too. So yeah, those guys. My first year, I played with a guy named Craig Lutz, who I've spoken with quite a bit this year. He's helping out with Birmingham in the southern, and really good right winger that I played with my second year a lot. So Steve Gibson, then Boulder comes in. A lot of good players, and really, the old Windsor Arena was such a tough place to play for the opponent. Like you guys remember, there was times that you had to fight your way out of the rink, and we had home ice advantage, and it was a huge advantage for us back then, especially. So yeah, lots of good people. We didn't always have the first year we went to the second round. We didn't always have playoff success, but we were competitive every year. And I mentioned before, like the Billet family I got to live with was special too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, did you play in the time with when the badge lady was up there in the crowd? You remember the badge lady?
Yeah, I do. I remember being a boy and going to the games when watching Gravy and those guys played back in the day, and I remember seeing that lady. She was there, and sat in the end and the opposition end in the first period, the first and third. Yeah, no, I never really. I don't know her name, and I know she passed just recently. Was it a few years ago? I forget. I remember reading it, but I didn't really know her. I didn't really know her, but I do remember the badge lady, and she was a fixture there in the corner. Yeah,
absolutely, she was. And after 3.5 years or seasons, I should say, with the Spits, you were traded to Kitchener, and then the following season, you played for the Canadian national team with guys like Paul Correa, Brian Savage, Chris Contos, Adrian Aucoin. Can you tell us about that experience?
Well, I mean, going to Kitchener was fun too. Like I still talk to my Billet family, and I really enjoyed my time there. Kitchener, then you'll remember, guys, was like it was the London Knights of the league, right? And so I got traded there. They were, I wouldn't say they were making a run for it. They were the middle of the pack team, but was treated great. Joe McDonnell was the coach. I still see Joe now. He's a scout for the Dallas Stars. Jim Nill hired him after he'd worked for the Wings back, and was really Joe was responsible, among other scouts, for picking some of the late round wing players that were really good players. And so Joe was a good coach. Great billet family. My billet family still go to every Memorial Cup, if you can imagine. So when I'm now covering the games for Sportsnet or for your TV, whatever it may be, I see them all the time. So they'll come out to the Memorial Cup, and that's part of their vacation every year. That's how much they love hockey. And so,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I moved in with them. Helen and Les McCausland. Les is still on the board, if you can imagine, as for the Rangers, and still involved, season ticket holders to this day. And they don't build kids anymore, but they're huge hockey fans. And so I love my time in Kitchener. And yeah, we lost in the first round that year, but I loved it there. I had friends in school, both Laurier and Waterloo at the time, and we lived close to the rink. Joe was good to me, and I was ready at that point for a change too, and was treated great. And then the national team, I got drafted by Quebec. My second training camp in Quebec was after they made the Lindros trade. You'll remember when Eric Lindros was drafted the year prior to me, he didn't put the jersey on in Quebec and asked for a trade. So he got traded to Philly, and they had players, all the players that came in that trade. So my second training camp, I really thought I could maybe make the team. My first camp, I'd had a good camp and was cut, but the team was much better. You could see they were turning into the team that would eventually win in Colorado a few years later. So in a camp, myself and Dwayne Norris got called in, and it's literally like 48 hours before the season would start. And Pierre Pagé, who was the coach at the time, said, "We have this opportunity for you guys to both join the national team. Would you like to do it?" And so it hadn't really occurred to me. I mean, I knew there was an Olympics coming that year, and I didn't know how it would all work. I'd been part of the program before at the under 18, under 17 level, but it was different back then. The national team was, its own sort of entity altogether, and Olympic Games were always an amateur event, as you know. So that was the last year it would be an amateur event. And then '96, it was NHL players would play. So I jumped at it. Dwayne and I both went. We ended up living together. It was sort of an odd year in that it was a constant sort of tryout. We would add players all the time. Players would get cut. So we trained in Calgary, but really we didn't have any home games. And I tell people that now. It's like we trained at Father David Bow sometimes twice a day. We went to Europe 3 times. We played in tournaments, and we played against club teams, but we really didn't have any home games. And we would travel around North America and play the American team. That was really what we did. So it was just a great experience. Constantly, some pressure to perform and make the team, because nobody's contracts were really guaranteed. So there was a lot of flux in terms of players trying to get their foot in the door to make the team. So we didn't really pick a team until January officially, and we had about a month to get our act together. So great experience. Tom Rennie was our coach. We added Korea Nedved late. The team struggled a lot. Like I tell people, we had a tough year. Like we lost to the Americans 9 out of 10 times. So we were going to the Olympics, just to finish, out of the medals, 7th, 9th, whatever. And so we kind of got on a roll and played good in the 10 games leading up to the Olympics. Kind of refining our game and rolled that right into the gold medal game. So one of my fondest memories. And I should tell you guys, like, we were supposed to meet this weekend in Collingwood for a reunion, all of us. So it was a long story, but we lost Greg Johnson this year. So Greg Johnson, the former Red Wing, was on our team too. And so that kind of was, as sad as it is, it was the tipping point for all of us to, contact one another and make sure we spent some time together. So Fabian Joseph, I ran into him in Halifax. He was our captain. I ran into him in Halifax at the Memorial Cup, and he said that he'd done his 92 reunion last year. So he's like, we should get together. And you guys won't know the name Paul Henry, but Paul Henry was like a scout for us at the time. He went on to work for Florida and player development, psychology degree, works with young offenders and people all over the world. But he's a psychologist for the Halifax Mooseheads, and so he was also a member of our team and was with us. Yeah. Traveled, and so I see him in Halifax and our captain, and we kind of get the idea that let's do a reunion. So it was going to be this weekend in Collingwood. So we're really disappointed we can't do it, but we will get together again. It's really like one of those, like a special group. I talk to half a dozen of these guys all the time still, and when you look back at your career, for some of us that got to play some NHL time, a lot of them didn't, and it was really their fondest memory, and it's still one of mine too. And I have my medal here on the wall in the house. So I hope we get to share that reunion real soon. And it's just a special group, and the way it all came together, it's special because of the way we didn't play well, and then when it mattered, we did, and that's really what when we talk about teams, when you find a way to have success and the camaraderie that goes with that, and that's why we've all kept in touch.
That's awesome, and hopefully you'll get that reunion in soon.
Funny, Todd, we've this is only episode 3, but our last interview was with Darren Colburn from the Cornwall Royals, and in that interview he talked a lot about Jason Cerrone as a line mate back in Cornwall, so we would have had shared a teammate, and of course being a Newfoundland guy, he was good friends with Dwayne Norris, so it's funny how such a small hockey world that it is. Leads me nicely to the next question. You were drafted 4th overall in '92 by the Nordiques. Turns out you never ended up playing a regular season game for them due to that trade. Being a former Cornwall guy, I can't help but ask the question. You ended up spending some time in a Nordiques farm system, the Cornwall Aces, and we've got the Aces jersey here. I do remember you playing that playoff season. Can you remember and tell us some about your time with the Aces? I think Jacques Martin was your coach at the time.
Yes, he was. It was awesome. We'd been to the Olympics, and I hurt my ankle. I hurt my ankle in the Olympic Games, actually. So it was a bit of a, I was trying to rush it back, and when we got out of the Olympic Games, Quebec sent both Dwayne and I to Cornwall, and we also had Aaron Miller, and we had Dave Carpa, and we had Chris Lindbergh all come down from Quebec, Stéphane Fissette. I'm trying to think who else came from national programs. Gar Snow. Gar Snow came from the American team. So we had a good team. We had a really good team. And so I forget how that played out. We played Hamilton. We won a couple rounds, and then we went into Moncton. I think it was when they had the 3 divisions, if I remember correctly, and it was like a best of 3 to go to the finals. Do you remember this? You can probably correct me.
No,
we went into Moncton. We played for 6 weeks playoffs, and Jacques was our coach, and we, at that time, when you add all those players to the national programs, and then Quebec had been eliminated, so we had like 12 or 14 guys that didn't play, like black aces. Right. So, and back then in the minors, or even now, you don't make any money. So all the guys are doing is hanging around, riding the bike, and paying rent. So nobody's happy. So, and when all these guys show up from the national team, right, you're taking people's jobs. So they're a little pissy. It was a different vibe. I thought Jacques handled everything really well, because there's a lot of guys that had played all year and didn't get to play just because we all showed up. So, but we were a good team, and I remember we beat. I remember playing the old Hershey rink in the playoffs. It was great. It was what an atmosphere, and they were a good team. We eliminated them and Hamilton both, and then I remember going into Moncton, and we lost. We lost both. It was best of 3, and we lost 2 in a row. One was in overtime. I'd have to look that up. I should. But it just was over that fast, and then they went on to play in the finals against St. John's, I guess it was. And so it just as you get on a roll like that, it's a kind of all these new faces sort of put together last minute. We felt like we were hitting our stride, and then we lost 2 quick games back-to-back nights, as I remember it, and we were out. And that was just a crappy way to end the playoffs, because we had gone that far. But Cornwall was, we had a lot of fun, and that was at the end of the year, and I remember I was nursing an ankle injury, and I was trying to play, and I didn't feel 100%. I ended up having to have surgery on it after the fact. But great team. Really feel like, looking back on that now with the players that we had, I wish we'd been able to follow through on that. I'd get to St. John's and play them, because I know they were a good team too. But and then a lot of those guys from that roster would end up. Rennie Corbet was there then too.
Yeah.
I think about the players we had on our minor league team at that time. It was pretty stacked, and probably 6 of them went on to win Stanley Cup. So there you go.
Isn't that the truth? So from there, you ended up getting traded to the Maple Leafs, from the Quebec Nordiques over to the Maple Leafs. Can you tell us a bit about that trade and where you were and what you remember from that deal?
Well, I remember we were watching a local kid named Chris Allen, and Chris Allen was drafted by the Florida Panthers at the time. And so my dad and I had gone uptown to watch him get drafted. So long story, but my parents were at the Olympics, and when I was playing, Cliff Fletcher made a point to come and speak to my family in the crowd. And so it's just like in February. So imagine, my dad didn't tell me about it, of course. He didn't want me to get distracted by the whole thing. But Cliff made a point of finding my family and sitting down with them during the games in Lillehammer and just sort of saying we're interested in Todd. And so we went up to watch the draft. It's in June, and this young guy, Chris Allen, that my father had worked with on the ice, was going to get picked. And we hear this. The only reason we went uptown is to my grandfather's house because he's the only one that had TSN. So we went to watch the draft, and they're talking about this trade on the floor as you turn on your TV, right? So and Dad and I kind of look at each other like, well, this could be it. And sure enough, so I was thrilled. Like I remember. You guys know the whole story with Eric Lindros and the Quebec situation. Like I wasn't sure. Things were changing there a little bit, and the team got much better. I wasn't sure actually that I was in their plans. Like it's an odd looking back at it now. Like I feel like my first couple training camps were fine, and then they added a lot of pieces when they traded Eric and a lot of good players, and I wasn't sure that. They had plans for me at that point, at least that particular year. So getting traded to Toronto was like a new start, and being, where I'm from and being a Leaf fan was awesome. So I was really excited to go. And I told you guys earlier that when I played for Motor City Smitty in Windsor, that I knew Wendell Clark through our agent, and so I remember thinking to myself like, oh, it's too bad that Wendell's not going to be there, because Wendell was obviously going to Quebec. And I knew Matt's, of course, from being in training camp, but I did know Wendell just through Brad and through my agent, and I'd spent some time in Toronto and knew a lot of the guys on the team then, because Wendell lived in my agent's building. It's a long story, and I had the trainer look at my knee, and so I kind of knew the staff around and some of the players with the Leafs at the time, and so it was a good fit for me, and I was excited to come and I mean, that was really, looking back on it, a great summer, and things were changing in Toronto too at that point. The team was in a bit of flux. Cliff was changing things a little bit, but yeah, for an Ontario kid to find out that news on the brink of summer was pretty fun.
For sure. Do you remember your first NHL game?
Yes, it was Detroit. Is that right? I want to say it was a home and home in Detroit. Do you know this?
No, I don't. No. I was hoping you did.
Home and home in Detroit, when Detroit was pretty stacked, right? So it was the lockout, the year the lockout ended, and I was playing in St. John's. So I went to camp, I hurt my shoulder, and I went to the minors and played in St. John's, but I got called up, and I only played 5 games, but it was a home and home with Detroit, my first 2. And I remember just the pace of the games, and I remember, like, I'm not sure they had any plans to keep me around at that point because the season was pretty much done, and so I ended up going back and playing in the American League playoffs. But I just remember the speed, and Detroit was a really good team, a lot of good players at that time, and so I was 5 games in January, sort of February, maybe into February of that year, and then went back down to the American League before I played regularly the following year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how about your first NHL goal? Remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. That was actually, so I went back to camp, so 96-5-6, and got cut again. So I remember getting cut. I thought I had a good camp, and we were in Collingwood. I remember getting cut, and I was really disappointed. And so I went down to the minors, and I played. I want to say we played 10 or 11 games. It was late October when I got called back up. So I went to the minors and played really, really well. And I remember watching the highlights. I was rooming with Matt Martin, defenseman from Maine, that my buddy in St. John's, and we were watching the highlights when we got home, and Bill Berg broke his leg, which is unfortunate for Bill Berg. I really like Bill Berg. I ended up playing with him later, but I remember the two of us looking at each other on the couch and going, "That's it, you're going." And then sure enough, the next day I got the call up, and I remember thinking to myself at that time in the minors, boys, like, if I don't get in there now, this might be my chance. So I wasn't going to waste that chance. And Pat Burns was the coach of the team, and you guys know Pat loved to have his veteran guys, and so it was a little strange for me to even be there. But I got a chance just through an injury, and I scored in my first game. So I remember being on the ice. It was late in the third or early in the third period, and the puck was in the high slot. A rebound came to me, and I just fired it from a distance, and it went through the Byron Defoe, went through his legs, and that was the 2-1 at the time, I think, in the game. And I just remember the crowd on the far side of the ice above the penalty box, and that was pretty cool. So that was my first game back up again since the following January, and that was sort of the way I needed it to start, so I could get my foot in the door. You know what I mean?
Good stuff.
So you probably played more than 2/3 of your career combined between Toronto and Tampa Bay, and in both those teams you wore number 8. Was there any specific reason you wore number 8? Was there a special significance to that number for you?
Not really. It's what they gave me when at that point, again, I wore 21, I think, in St. John's for a period of time. And then when I first got called up, I actually did wear 21 in Toronto, believe it or not. And that's, of course, Boreas Salming's number.
Oh, yeah.
So I have that jersey, and I have Boreas sign it.
Oh, nice.
So those 5 games I played, after the lockout ended that first year, was number 21, and then I changed number 8. But that's what they had. I mean, listen, like I was playing, the fact that Pat Burns picked me for his team was enough, and I was going to wear whatever they threw in my stall that particular day.
Yeah, it was the right color. It was blue and white.
It worked, and then when I got to Tampa, it was available, so I just kept it going. You know what I mean?
Good stuff. Now, February 20th, 1999, significant date for you, and something had something to do with the Air Canada Centre. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so it was my 7th goal of the year. February. No, it was, I mean, that whole year, boys, when I look back on my time in Toronto, that was a fun group, and for lots of reasons, but mostly, getting to close the gardens the week prior, and all the ceremonies and all the parades, and getting, all the alumni guys in town, like all my heroes were there and mingling with us in the rooms, and going to dinners and doing all those things. So leading up to the closing of the gardens was a huge night. Our team was an exciting one. We were a good team, and we were legitimate contenders. Cujo came, Steve Thomas, Carpazza, Brian Berard. We added a bunch of guys that made our team much better, and so it was an exciting time to be a Leaf. I say we played a style similar to today, when it wasn't really part of the, it wasn't the way the league was playing, and Pat Quinn took over our team. He just freed us up to be creative and play, and I always tell people, like, Pat sort of had this persona of a big tough Irishman and had a presence about him, but he really loved guys to play with skill, and I remember the first few meetings and thinking, wow, this isn't how I had anticipated. This isn't what I thought I'd heard from Pat Quinn at the opening day of training camp. And everybody sort of was just like looking at each other like, wow, we're not going to be trapping like we've been doing like for 3 years. We're going to play offensive and try to score and use our ability. And so everybody was thrilled. And immediately we learned that Cujo was world class. We could take chances. We could play a certain way, and and had success. So that whole year was exciting. And then, of course, the opening night, there's so much going on. You're talking about tickets and family and all the things leading up to that night was pretty cool. I hadn't even really considered, like, people used to say, did you think that you might get the first goal, or did you think that you might, I really hadn't. I was really at that point on the team. I was just trying to play regularly and stay in the lineup, be consistent, all those things. So it hadn't really dawned on me that this is kind of a historic night. Anything that happens tonight is going to be special. And so I scored the first goal. It was 4 some minutes into the game, and it was a terrible goal, but it went in and rebound from point shot and a bouncing puck, and Hackett was the goalie for Montreal, and he'd already gone down, and the puck just made it across the line, and that was the first goal in the Air Canada Center. And so I would say it was a neat thing to happen to me. It was my 7th goal for real, so that's the kind of year it was. I was was playing sparingly, but it was a cool thing to happen to a player like me, because really, you guys know, it's like those sort of accolades are normally for the guys you read about, right? So
yeah, couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Yeah,
That's a cool trivia story.
Yeah, no, it is.
So over the course of your career, you played for some pretty amazing coaches, probably Pat Burns and Pat Quinn among them. Any funny stories come to mind about either of those guys?
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, the Pats, they were so alike in some ways and so different in their styles of coaching. I'll tell you a story about Pat Burns, and it's the reason I have my nickname. So my nickname kind of followed me around. It still does. It's funny when I run into old teammates, they call me One Touch. So One Touch started my rookie year. So that year I got called up, Bill Berg broke his leg. I get called up. We were playing in New Jersey, and Pat Burns was hard on me, and I knew we would be, because I was young, and I looking back, I really needed it. But so I was in another lineup. I was trying to, be consistent, stay in the, get my foot in the door and win over Pat, which is, hard for 30-year-olds. So anyway, I played in New Jersey, and I'm playing left wing. The pass comes to me on the boards of my own end, and I don't stop it. Like I don't receive the pass. I try to one touch the pass back to the defenseman that passed it to me, and we're in our own end, of course, bad idea, and gets turned over and ends up in our net. So I'm in New Jersey and dressing room between periods, and Pat's walking around the island over here, and he's saying, 1-0, 1-0, in New Jersey at that time was like 4-0 today. Like they'd lock it down, and that was a trap game, and they're ready to win. So anyway, so he starts yelling at me, and he says, "Todd, there's only 2 effing guys in this game who can make one-touch passes." And he kind of comes over to me and he looks me right in the eye, and he goes, "Gretzky and Lemieux, and last I checked, you weren't one of them." So I'm feeling bad. I mean, whatever, it's 1-0, but I'm feeling bad. The guys are tapping me on the shoulder. "Don't worry about it, Toddy. It's over." So the next week in practice, we're at the Gardens, and I'd scored a goal, whatever, in a drill, and one of the guys on our team was Benoit Hogue, French accent, good player. And I hear Benoit back in the line. He says, "Away, one touch." So everybody's chuckling, but they're not chuckling that hard because Burnsy's our coach. So then later in practice, I scored again, and it's Mike Gartner this time. So Mike Gartner goes, way to go, one touch, and so everybody starts chuckling, right? So I'm like, I don't want to laugh, of course, because I'm a rookie. Yeah. And he's mad at me. So this is one of my favorite things for Pat Burns, because I couldn't get a word out of him. Like I try to talk to him some days and say, what do I got to do to play more? Like he was just old school. He didn't call meetings. He didn't have one-on-ones. That wasn't his style. So anyway, I'm standing down by the visiting bench at the Maple Leaf Gardens. And this is after the guys are like, "Hey, way to go, one touch," and guys are tapping the boards and chuckling themselves. And I'm like, oh my God. So I see Pat coming from our bench down to me. I see him out of the corner of my eye, and I'm sort of like just leaning over my shin pads, and I see him coming. I'm like, oh my God, what's he doing? Like, is he gonna kill me? You know, like, he's gonna break his stick over me. He didn't think it was funny. What was it? So he comes down and he shuffles right in beside me. Right. So I'm a rookie. I'm 20. Shuffles right in beside me, and he kind of leans in. He goes, "Well, guess you got a nickname, eh, kid?" And then he skated away. He didn't say anything else. I thought he was going to try and send me down or something. That was great. So that's one of my favorite stories of Pat.
That's awesome.
He was man a few words, but when he did speak, you listened, right?
Wow. So after playing for the Leafs for 6 seasons, you played for Tampa, Phoenix, Vancouver, Nashville, Philly. So after nearly 500 NHL games, what was your favorite city to play in?
Well, I like Toronto. I tell people, like, I wasn't really ready to leave. Like, I mean, I don't think, I got traded in junior, and I was traded in the summer, before I'd really played in Quebec. I knew the players, but I wasn't really ever on the team in Quebec. So Toronto was really, at the time in junior, our team in Windsor was struggling, and I was ready to get traded. I was sort of asked for a trade, as much as you could do that at that time. But when I left Toronto, I had no inkling I was getting traded. We'd just been to the finals or conference finals, and I come back the next year. I was really, excited about what could be with that group of players, and I had no idea that I was going to get traded. I remember we just had lunch. We'd eaten in the restaurant, the Platinum Lounge in the Air Canada Center, and the PR guy came to get me and said, "Pat wants to see it, Quinn." And I literally, it didn't even dawn on me then, I was like, so I went in, and of course he's like, I traded to Tampa. Cliff was there. Cliff Fletcher, of course, was in Tampa there at the time, and they'd already traded for Frederick Modine. You remember Freddie Modine?
Yeah.
So, he's like, I traded you to Tampa. Cliff's been trying to get you for a year, and I'm like, wow, I had no idea. So, as shocking as that is, you say the right things. I love Pat Quinn. I mean, I wish I could have played for him longer and learned a lot from him, but that's how it happened. And I remember the press conference, just talking about it that day, and just being in complete shock. But that's how it went. And then after that, I think, after your first trade, you're sort of just almost immune to it. That you can expect that things happen, and you understand the business of it. But I really like living in Toronto, and I like the team. I like the players. I like that I was close to home and my family was there and all those things. But I mean, that would be my choice as my favorite. I say when I got to Vancouver later, I even liked playing for the Manitoba Moose. It was in the American League. I liked when I got back to Canada, just the way the fans. You spent some time away in places like Tampa and Phoenix. At that time was a little different atmosphere around the rink. Fans weren't quite as it just wasn't as important to the people, And so even when I got back to Winnipeg playing in the minors, I played for Stan Smeal. He was my coach. I loved Steamer. He was great. So I liked playing in Canada. I would say that Vancouver team I played on later on when we went on a nice run, good to get into the playoffs, and had Detroit 2-0 here. I guess it was 0-3 in the first round. That was a fun group, and being back in Canada, just the vibe and the energy in the city in the playoffs was pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. And then after your NHL career, you played a few years in Europe, notably in Germany in the DEL. What was that like?
It was great. We, like every player, you end up in Europe because there's not a lot available here. I wanted to obviously stay and play longer. I didn't have anything in a contract. It was October, so I was kind of waiting, and the season was starting, and I thought, well, I better get moving here, get playing. At least if I'm not playing, nobody's going to be interested. If I'm playing somewhere, maybe they will be. So I went to Helsinki, played for Jokerit initially, and that was great. Like I'd been to Europe, I traveled with the national team, and I knew a bit about Europe, just having played club teams. I knew about the countries. I understood. I knew some of the teams and the tournaments and things. So I knew my way around a little bit, but I still did some homework, and at that time, Yoker had Glenn Metropolitan. So I knew Metro from being in Tampa when he would get called up to Washington, and I knew he was a good player. I knew his backstory and his family, and I knew he was a hell of a player. And there was a few other teams interested, and I went. And so the other guy I went with was Kevin Hodgson, the goaltender that played for the Detroit Red Wings. So I knew Hodgie from my time in Tampa. I'd played with him for over a year there, and we both knew Glenn from him getting called up to the Washington Capitals, and he'd get called up from the American League, and Glenn would play on the power play with Adam Oates,
Wow.
So we knew it was a good situation. We knew Helsinki. I knew Helsinki, brand new rink, had a practice rink in the basement of the main rink, 14,000 seat rink. You take the elevator to the practice rink below you. It was really cool. It was a really good setup, but I got there late. They'd already played about a dozen games, and I got hurt right away. So I got hurt 4 or 5 games into my time there, a couple weekends in. And so I had to have surgery. And by the time I got back, we were pushing for a playoff spot. I played a few more games, but I wasn't really ready to play. And so I wasn't offered a contract back. And so I rehabbed my knee all summer, and I was really thinking about retiring, but I thought, well, I got to look after my knee. And if something were to come of it, we'll see, right? So it's the lockout year. So nobody's signing anybody because everybody knows the lockout's coming and they want to get their NHL player, right? Yeah. So my agents talk to any number of teams, and it's like, well, we're going to wait till August, September, and see what happens. And so one of my teammates from my time with the Manitoba Moose was Josh Holden. I don't know if you remember Josh. He was a first-round pick of Vancouver way back, and really good player. Josh, his wife Janie and my wife hit it off in our time in Winnipeg. So anyway, out of the blue, Facebook, in August of 2004, Janie's like, what are you guys doing this year? So Josh is already over in Switzerland playing for this team called Morges, which is a second league team right near Lausanne. So Janie Josh's wife says, well, we're the only ones here. They're allowed another import. Would you consider coming? And we're like, well, you should be my agent. You know what I mean? So we made some calls. We kind of got working on it. So this team had won their way from third league into second league, if you can imagine. So they played in this little rink. It was partly outdoors, beautiful area right on Lake Geneva. And so we went, and thank God we did, and thank God for the Holdens for giving us the chance, because they really orchestrated the deal, or I was going to retire. I had no options. So we went, and here's what happened. So Josh had a contract dispute. He ends up in Finland, so he leaves. The reason we go there is to be with the Holdens because we know him. He leaves. So we're there for a month. The season's starting, and Josh is gone. Wow. So lockout year, of course, NHL players are all sitting around waiting for the lockout to end, and they all want to play too. So coach calls us in one day. There's another Canadian on the team. His name is John Foust. Played at Princeton. Good player. Played in the elite league over there for quite a while. And so he calls John and I in. And he says we added a new player, new import. So, and we're like, who? And he says Martin Gélina. So John and Foust and I look at each other, the two Canadian guys. We look at each other like, Martin Gélina. Like, how did you get Martin Gélina to come here? We're like, is it some other Martin Gélina we don't know about? Like a French guy that, no, Martin Gélina, fresh from the Stanley Cup Finals with Calgary. Wow. And we're like, wow, what a how'd that happen? Yeah, it turned out Marty Gélina knew I had a friend who owned a vineyard outside of Lausanne. So the Lake Geneva in Switzerland there, it's all the mountains up in behind Lake Geneva. It's all tapered, a lot of vineyards. So that's how we ended up there. So I played all year with Martin Gélina, and I tell a story. We rented a scooter. So we would take the scooter from our apartment building, like a little, 60cc scooter, and we would double each other to the games. So Martin Gélina used to get on the back of my scooter. We'd have these silver space helmets on. I mean, we whistled down to the games, and the guys thought it was hilarious. And I used to say to Marty, Marty, if the lockout ever ends, you got to tell this story about you and I riding the games on our scooter.
Oh, for sure.
So it was the best thing for me. And I mean, you guys have probably read or know about Mark Angelo, one of the hardest, like, honest to God, hardest workers I ever played with. So, and I knew it when we got him, and I thought, this is going to be good, because this guy works his ass off, and he pushed me in the gym, he pushed me in practice, and I got healthy with my knee. And by the end of that year, I was ready to play again, really. Like, so second league, Switzerland, you play a lot, because there's only 2 imports, so you got lots of ice time, and it was exactly what I needed to get into the elite league again. And so yeah, I see Marty from time to time, and we always laugh about that. We go to McDonald's after the game and grab a Big Mac and take it on our scooter on the way home. Where else can you do that, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now,
So
you still play every now and then, in tournaments and whatnot, and
yeah, I do. I try to play as much as I can. I mean, a lot of like charity events. I try to play some alumni games. I like to get together with the guys and so, see some of the guys from my generation when you can play in the Leaf alumni or whatever alumni games.
Yeah.
It's tough with my crew. I got 4 kids, guys, and so we're busy, and
yeah,
I probably turn down as many as I get to play in, but I like to do them, and the alumni associations for all the teams and the NHL alumni, they do lots of great work with charities, and there's often these weekend sets of games where people raise money and for all sorts of different charities, and I like doing those too. But yeah, I don't play in any kind of formal league, but I do like to play in some of the alumni events when I get a chance, and that gives me a chance to catch up with some of the guys I played with that I missed.
for sure. Yeah, like there was the one at Comerica Park that was probably pretty exciting. The one against the Wing alumni.
Yeah, that was awesome. I mean, I was thrilled to get the nod to play, and that sort of thing. Yeah, what an experience that was. The Leaf alumni trying to match up with the Wing alumni, given the records in the last 20 years was tough. So they needed 2 teams, 2 games.
Yeah.
So that's why I got to play, boys, you can imagine. But it was cool. Like, I played outside in a couple of rinks in Europe, so I kind of knew what to expect. But and the vibe with the big stadium and everything else, I never got to play in one of those as a player, like you see every year now, the Stadium Series games. But so it was special. And to be honest, I met a number of Leaf alumni guys I'd not met at that event, and we talked about the closing of the Maple Leaf Gardens and having guys in and out and around. But I mean, there's 2 teams of players, so we got to spend the weekend, and it was special. My wife and I really enjoyed that, and the Leaf and Red Wing alumni took really good care of us. That was cool.
That was a good thing. That was awesome game. And you played last year in the Play for a Cure tournament, the one run by Jeff Casey.
Yeah. Yep.
We just like to say hi to Jeff every now and then, so let's say hi to Jeff.
Hi, Jeff. Is he watching?
He watches all these.
That was cool. He called me early on, and he told me that he'd connected with Adam Graves. And I said, well, that was the smartest move he made, and look at what it turned out to be. And I know Jeff's story is a good one, and he's a survivor. And those kind of stories are why you want to play in these kind of events. And every time you go to these events, you hear stories like that. And whether it's heart and stroke or Alzheimer's or cancer or whatever it may be, it's pretty special. So, and the fact that people are willing to raise money, I always say, and play with old retired guys like us makes us feel good too. It's the truth, right? So whatever we can do to make that happen, and when Adam puts his name to something, Graves, it's going to be done right. So, and it was good to be a part of it.
Absolutely. And recently, you were a color commentator on Spitfire's home broadcasts with our friend Chris McLeod. What was it like to watch your old team from the broadcast booth?
Yeah, that was interesting. I didn't expect to get into that. To be fair, I always said playing in the old Windsor Arena was pretty cool, and just to be back. I lived in Europe for quite a stretch, and I hadn't really followed closely the Spitfires. I knew that Bob was involved, Bubner and Warren, but I didn't know what the rink looked like. I hadn't really got to see it with my own eyes until I was actually working there. So it was it was cool to see what it had become, and what the with Warren and Bob coming back and putting their time and energy into the team, how it had changed and how much more professional it really was. So that all came about, honestly enough, innocently enough, with Chris and I. Like, I knew Chris well enough. I mean, I would do the odd morning spot on here in Chatham on Chris's radio show, and we talked quite a lot that year because of Battle of the Blades.
Yeah. So
Chris would call me Sundays or whatever, I forget, once a week there for about 6 weeks, and we talk about figure skating, right? Yeah. So when he was approached first about the job, and they asked Chris if there's anybody he wanted to work with. And somehow my name came up, and it was probably just because it was fresh in his mind, because we talked more in that last few months than we had ever. So that's how it happened. And so I get a call, do you want to do the color? And I'm like, I don't know anything about color. Like, I literally don't. But I'd watched enough hockey, and you know when you're around it and you listen to it enough, you get a rhythm. And so we tell the story the first night. You may remember, that's when I told the Casey Jones story, actually. So the first night we had a pane of glass break, and you know what that's like. That could be 3 minutes, it could be a half an hour, right? So it turns into about 16 minutes. So Wayne Jenner's in my ear, and he's saying, well, start talking, we got to kill some time, right? So Chris, to his credit, I don't know why it came up. He's like these first weekends, what do you remember about your first weekend in the league? So he says to me, right? So of course my first weekend in the league was we played at home, and then we went to North Bay and the old Casey Jones and Saga on the bus. Guys in my ear tell me I'm gonna get my head ripped off. So I tell that story for about 10 minutes during the break, and we're laughing and carrying on. I'm trying to get through it, of course, but that was a nice icebreaker, obviously, and I just happened to remember it when he queued me up for this, because we'd not rehearsed it clearly, but and he's like, what do you remember about your first weekend in the league? And I said, well, my first week, oddly enough, my first weekend went like this, right? So that's when I first told that story. And the colors, I miss it. Like I said to the guys, I'm going to go down and do a little piece this week with Chris in the studio, and I miss it. And I told the guys, I said, I'm helping coach the Lancers now, but if I can do some more games, I'd like to come and do them. I like working with Chris, and I think it keeps me in the loop with junior hockey. And when I get to with Sportsnet, I get to go to the Memorial Cup, I feel like I've done my homework when I'm around it from week to week. And so I asked Wayne Jenner, our producer, and Chris both if they'll have me back. So I'm looking forward to doing more games.
Oh, good stuff.
Yeah.
And as a member of the Sportsnet guys, and you did cover the Memorial Cup here in town in 2017, and you also played in that CHL alumni game, and there was some pretty good guys in that game, and you got to play with your old buddy Stillman again.
Yes, I did. Yeah, that was awesome. And Colby was in the game too, so we're both covering the Memorial Cup and get to play in the game. The whole when Windsor hosted, that was cool for me too, having played here, and I got to do lots of things that were special, being an ex-Spitfire, and I was just proud of the way it all played out. And the team, having not played for 6 weeks or whatever it was, and the way they still responded and pulled it together when they had to was pretty cool. And that's happened to a few other teams, but I mean, when it's your old team, it means something too, right?
Yeah.
So it was tough to not see them play, and the expectations, and I just imagine the job that Rocky Thompson did, keeping that team on task and motivated. I mean, that's hard to do. There's teenagers and a bunch of kids that things can go sideways when you get eliminated and you're on your own in the city. And Rocky had them doing 2-a-days and runs and all kinds of things. So they were more than prepared. And being an ex-Spitfire, to see the city get behind it and all the extra perks we got to be a part of as hosts for the event was pretty special. Yeah,
for sure.
So you've recently been named as assistant coach of the Windsor Lancers program. Can you tell us a little bit about that program and your excitement with that?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, it kind of came out of the blue a little bit too. So Kevin Hamlin, you guys may not know, but Kevin Hamlin came to the Spitfires when I was there. My second year, he came as like a third coach. So we had Motor City Smitty, Dave Perpich, and then Kevin. So I first met Kevin when he first retired from playing, and he was going to Teachers College at the time, and so he's been, with the Catholic School Board in Windsor for a long time. This is his, I think, 13th year as coaching the Lancers too. So I used to see him in the rinks. My son would be playing, and his son Ray would be playing, and I'd see him. I probably saw him 3 or 4 times over like a 7-year period, just in passing with their kids in AAA. So it kind of came out of the blue. I said, I see you've lost another coach. It was when Eric Wellwood left, and Andy Delmore had been the assistant coach. And so he's like, "Oh, Toddy, it's a revolving door. Would you be interested?" I said, "I am interested, but how does it work? When do you practice and everything else?" So we got to the bottom of all that, and I really enjoyed it. I didn't know if I would. I like the skill development side of it. That's where I primarily worked in hockey since I retired, and working with kids on the ice in small groups and breaking down the skills and things. Is what I really sort of have done since I retired. I had my own facility at one point where I did that every day. So I didn't know if I was ready, honestly, to take on a level like that. But I coached some junior back here when I first came home, and so when he asked me, I jumped at the chance. I'm glad I did. So we just found out today, guys, that we're actually not going to have any games in the fall. So it's really disappointing. It's really disappointing that for these kids that they're going to have all their classes online, but there's also not going to be any sports. So the kids that do come to the city, it's going to be pretty quiet. So I'm not sure. I'm really hoping that in the next sort of 6 weeks we can at least post a schedule that can start after Christmas or something, and we can kind of get our head around, because we can't do anything until we know our schedule. That's you guys know that. Like you work back from the regular season schedule. That's how you do anything with a team. So until we know we're going to be playing, and then we're in limbo like the kids are. And I feel bad for them because this team, we had a good run last year and we went out in the first round, and I know a lot of the kids want to make it right. So it's tricky. Yeah. And with the virus, these schools have a lot of things to think about that, a regular hockey league or sport league doesn't. And there's lots of things that don't apply, maybe that the NHL is talking about. For instance, like we're hearing all the phases they've met in order to start training camps and things, and obviously financially it's much easier for them to do that and to have it, have the NHL schedule play out in 2 different places. So it's just trickier at a financial institution where you have students from all over the world and so many in small space. Like, it's not going to happen. So anyway, we're disappointed to learn it, but I learned that news, and players are as well. But I did enjoy coaching, and I said to Hammer, I'd really like to come back. And so we had a great recruiting class, and we were ready to announce all that. And we did all our recruiting just like this, which is unique. And so it's tough to know it. And so we're just hoping that we can, meet all the phases in the interim, and then we can sometime in the fall put together a schedule that we know we'll be playing some games this year.
Yeah. And it's just not, it's an uncertainty, right? I mean, even the NHL, we don't really know what's going on with the NHL. I mean, they've got the proposal, but that might not even work, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot has to go right in the meantime, but at least there's something in place that they can look forward to and shoot for. I just feel like it's, here we are in June and we're already ruling out games into January, and so I always think like a player, Timmy, like it's tough for me to say, I imagine being at home right now, and entering my senior year of university and really wanting to be a special event, and knowing that there's not maybe going to be a senior year, that'd be tough pill to swallow. And so I feel bad for all the athletes, really, and students at everywhere. Like, you think about swimmers and volleyball, all the sports, and students with Olympic aspirations or whatever it may be. To take 18 months off is in your prime development. That's tough to swallow. So hockey's a little bit different, I guess, because some of the players have options. They could play some pro hockey, I'm sure. And if they're only going to have offer online classes, there's nothing's keeping them from staying, right? So, and then it becomes, what does your program look like after the fact, right? So, a lot to think about. So we're getting our head around all that too, and just trying to, ensure the players that there's going to be some kind of season, and just trying to keep them focused and ready. That's all you can do, right?
Yeah, that's it. Well, here's hoping.
Yeah, for sure.
So I got one more question, then I maybe flip back to Chris if he's got anything else. But we got this guy Alexis Lafreniere predicted to go first overall this draft. Looks like a pretty special player, and just wondering what your thoughts on him, or any other guys that we should be watching for too.
Yeah, I think we saw what he could do at the World Junior Tournament. But when I met him, he's strong, like taller than me, and strong and powerful kid already. He's just been. He just looks like one of these kids that's been around it a long time already. He's so prepared and mature, ready for. He doesn't look like a kid. He doesn't look like an 18-year-old. And so powerful, great skill. I think he's a bona fide star in the league. And so after that, I like Byfield a lot. I think there's a lot of raw sort of ability there for sure. And I know Corey loves him, Stillman, his coach in Sudbury. I talked to him at length about him. So you can't miss. Both are going to be really good. Drysdale's coming to his own. There's a lot of good. There's some good players, a lot of potential, and Lafreniere, is a bit like McKinnon, maybe not quite as explosive a player, but that kind of size and strength already, and a good skater. Yeah, I like him a lot. He's clearly the best prospect, and then after that, there's a lot of good players in the 2 to 10 area there too, and then I'd say there's a bit of a shift. But anyway, Lafreniere, Timmy, is a special player. He's not a generational player, but he's right the closest thing. Yeah.
Right on.
So maybe one last one for you here. The NHL's announced the 24-team playoff format. So maybe your thoughts, both as a analyst and hockey fan, and then what you would think of that as a player, kind of being seconded to a hotel room for 6 to 8 weeks, away from family, away from everything. Just your general thoughts on where we are today in this unique situation we find ourselves
in. Yeah, it's difficult, and in our own personal situation, luckily we've had no one come down with COVID, and I got 3 girls and a boy in the house. We actually had an exchange student here for quite some time too, from Ecuador, who was a friend of my oldest daughter. Yeah, so we had a house full, and it was tough. It was tough because this exchange student, my daughter took Spanish, she's French immersion, but she took a Spanish class, and this girl was on a Rotary club, so the Rotary exchange couldn't get home, borders were closed, and the family who was keeping her had 2 daughters, I think, were moving home and didn't have room. She was supposed to move somewhere else. It's a long story. So we took her in, and she's a great kid. Ali's son was she's from Ecuador, from Quito. So we loved having her, but it was just, such a tough day to put her on a plane and send her back to Ecuador with the mask. Here's an 18-year-old girl, and you forget, like, this is, a 7-hour flight and then a 9-hour drive, have to quarantine when she gets there. It's just so hard to see her have to do that,
Sure.
So we felt terrible for her, but she made it and everything's fine. Everybody was healthy, but yeah, it just, getting your head around, I got kids between, 8 and 16, and the youngest of my kids, I think she'll be fine. I worry a little bit about the older ones of just not having to spend time with their friends, and just, my middle daughter is going to miss her graduation, and just some of the, things we sort of take for granted that are affecting them at this point. And a 17-year-old daughter who misses her friends and misses her volleyball club and misses, just being at school now, and so trying to keep them on task and doing the things they're supposed to be doing every day has been difficult, especially my older two. They've sort of mailed in the whole schoolwork thing the last few weeks. So it's what it is. But as far as the NHL, I mean, I can't imagine, I love my family, and I told you I got 4 of my own. So I can't imagine spending what could be 10 days, but what could be 8 weeks in a hotel and every night Q-tip in your nose, check your temperature. I don't know how that's going to go over well. And clearly they have the dollars are going to invest to do it properly, but I mean, it just seems like a lot of things will have to fall into place in the interim before that can really go on. And, small group training, I read today that they're not allowed to have, you have to bring in an outside goaltending coach for your goaltender. Like, I don't know what that's all about. And
Really?
they won't allow the team's goaltending coach to work with any more than one goalie. And so if you're going to bring 3 goalies to camp, then somebody has to bring their own guy, and it has to be from an outside source. I mean, I don't know. And then groups of 6, what's training camp look like in groups of 6? So, I'd love to see hockey guy. Like, I miss it, and I get a chance to cover the Leafs. I want to see them in the playoffs and see how they can do. It's the kind of team that can win, especially now. And but I just feel like it just seems like a lot has to go right. And if something were to go wrong, that could spell the end for lots of sports for a long time. And so I'm a little concerned about that. But I would love to see some hockey as long as it's safe, whether there's fans or not. I hope to get to see it, but it just seems like it's a bit rushed given what we know at this point.
Exactly. Have you heard anything in your circles if one of the players on one of the teams gets it? What happens then?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, we know players have had it. But I mean, it's just, I don't know how that works. So you're in your groups of 6 until the season were to start, clearly, and then so they'll give you 15 days of camp in theory to get through that 7 to 15 day period where the virus starts, and then after that you should be good as long as you're still staying on your own bus in your own hotel room and there's no outsiders interacting. And that's the whole thing. You create the bubble in that training camp time in your groups of 6, and then as long as you're tested every day, nothing really should happen. But you and I both know saw Vegas is open. Vegas is supposed to be one of the places with the casinos open the other day, and I thought, oh my God, well, that can't be. I'm sure the NHL didn't want that, but what are you going to do?
For sure.
So, no, I'd love to see it happen, but I think a lot has to happen in the meantime too.
For sure.
All right. Well, I think that's all I got for you tonight, Todd and Chris. I don't know. How about you? You got
no, this was awesome.
anything else?
This was great.
This was great, Todd. This was absolutely great. The stories were awesome. I got a feeling there's probably a few more.
Oh yeah.
Maybe
another time.
Maybe we'll get you back for a second time.
Sounds good, boys.
Yeah, we really appreciate it, Todd, and thank you so much for joining us, and wish you nothing but the best, and hope to see you soon after all this fun stuff is over.
I hope so, buddy. Yeah, nice to chat with you guys. Nice to meet you too, Tristan. I see you looking over your dad's shoulder over there. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Timmy. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.
We'll chat
Thanks,
again.
Todd. Take care, buddy.
Yeah, boys.